Now that we're 3 weeks into the 2025 college football season, we have a good read on who the worst teams are. Today I want to talk about the 12 worst teams in college football, and we have some teams that are always on the list and some that are new to being horrible. The list will be in no particular order, but at the end of the video I will make my pick as to who is the worst team in all of college football so far. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and talk about the worst team in college football for 2025. Okay, so pretty much every team that has not won a game will be on the list, and then some of the worst teams that have only won one. The first school we're to talk about is the Western Michigan Broncos out of the MAC. Typically, the Broncos are halfway decent as they usually finish in the middle of the conference, but this year it has been a different story. So far, the Broncos are 0-3, as in week 1 they ended up going on the road to Michigan State and got killed 23-6. The offense did absolutely nothing, and in week 2 they slowly started to find themselves as they played against North Texas. So far, the Mean Green are actually undefeated, but the Broncos lost this game by 3 points, dropping their second. This past weekend, they went on the road to play a top 10 Illinois team, and they got shut out 38-0. Western Michigan is a candidate to be the worst team because so far they haven't won a game yet, but I do think they'll be better by the end of the season. I don't think they win next week against Toledo and get to 0-4, but after that they play against Rhode Island, UMass, and Ball State, so they should slowly get back in the win category. Right ahead of the Western Michigan Broncos, I'm going to have the Kansas State Wildcats. I don't think anybody would have thought K-State football was going to be this bad, as in week 0, they ended up actually playing Iowa State really tough. That game came down to the wire, and the Cyclones converted a late 4th down and won 24-21 in Ireland. Some people are saying that there's a curse for teams that play in week 0, and that seemingly followed them back to Manhattan, as in week 2, they were losing to North Dakota with just a few minutes left. Luckily, Avery Johnson led them on a game-winning drive, and they beat the FCS school 38-35. Hopefully that was just going to be a one-time thing, but after that, they had one of the worst losses in school history as Army came to town. Kansas State only had 2 possessions in the second half, and Army ended up capitalizing late and won 24-21. They had a late interception, and now K-State was in pure panic mode. Army had literally just lost to Tarleton State, so it was really bad, and then this past weekend, Kansas State went on the road and lost to Arizona. Currently, the Wildcats are 1-3, and they could be easily 0-4. It's been a terrible season for Chris Klieman, and hopefully he can get the ship right in here soon, and hopefully he can get things fixed, but I'm not sure if they win more than 3 or 4 games. The third school on the list is also winless at this point in the season, and that is the San Jose State Spartans. To be fair, the team has only played 2 games, so it's really hard to say that they are that bad, but so far in 2025, the Spartans lost a game to Central Michigan that they lost 16-14, and then this past weekend they got blown out by Texas 38-7 on the road. That first game they probably should have won, but this past weekend they never had a chance. Nothing against San Jose State, but they were never going to go into Austin and win that game. While the Spartans are off to a winless start, it's really hard to argue that they're really that bad, and I don't think they'll be spending much more time on the worst teams list. The Mountain West doesn't look all that great this year, and I think they're to get their first win against Idaho, and I wouldn't be terribly shocked if they beat Stanford either. This could be their last time on the list, but San Jose State is currently winless. Up next, we're to talk about the team that was the worst in the FBS last year, and that's the Kennesaw State Owls. They are one of the newest programs in all of college football, and they also have a new head coach. In week 1, Kennesaw would go on the road to play against Wake Forest, and that was actually a very competitive game. I don't know if it said more about Kennesaw or about how bad Wake was, but Kennesaw only lost the game 10-9. They ended up missing an extra point in the first half, which would cost them badly, and then they just couldn't get things going at the end. In week 2, they went on the road to play against Indiana, and they got blown out 56-9, but that was obviously going to be expected. The first 2 games were not great for Kennesaw, but in week 3, they got their first win as they beat Merrimack 27-13. I obviously don't think that Kennesaw State is the worst team in all of college football, but a win against Merrimack doesn't really do much to think that they're going to be any good. The rest of the season will be interesting for the Owls as they'll play against Arkansas State next week and then Middle Tennessee, and I don't really think there's much of a chance of them doing anything this season, but I do think Kennesaw probably wins 2 or 3 more games at least, and they're slowly making progress at the FBS level. Up next, we have the Virginia Tech Hokies, and that's another Power 4 school. They probably finished second to Kansas State in terms of how disappointing they've been for a Power 4 team, as so far the Hokies are winless. There have been some pretty bad moments for them, as in week 1 against South Carolina, they just could not get their offense going, and they lost 24-11. Many were hoping it was just a one-time bad afternoon, but after that, they came home and played against Vanderbilt and got crushed. Vanderbilt came into their stadium, won 44-20, and this was miserable for Virginia Tech fans. It showed that Brent Pry was on the hot seat and that he'd have to have things fixed quickly, but then in week 3 it got a million times worse. Old Dominion is sometimes a decent team, but the fellow in-state Monarchs came into their stadium and won 45-26. It's obvious that Virginia Tech does not have a defense, and it seemed that they gave up on the coach. This is one of the worst losses in school history, and Virginia Tech is already having to find a new coach as Brent Pry is gone. I'm pretty sure they're going to beat Wofford this weekend, but outside of that, I don't know who they beat. Maybe Wake Forest, maybe Virginia, I don't know. Either way, I think they probably win 2 or 3 games at max. While the Oregon State Beavers are no longer a Power 4 team, they are still extremely disappointing, and they are absolutely terrible this year. Trent Bray may be one of the next coaches that's fired, as after Jonathan Smith left for Michigan State, Bray has just not been able to replicate the same success that Smith had. Big-time quarterback Malik Murphy has been decent, but besides that, the Beavers have been horrible. They got killed by Cal 34-15 in week 1 at home, and that was shocking because many thought that Cal was the worst Power 4 team in the nation. The next week they had a couple of embarrassing moments against Fresno State, and they ended up losing 36-27 in that game at home. And then this past weekend, they were getting destroyed by number 21 Texas Tech before they put up some points in the second half and ended up losing 45-14. Oregon State has not really looked competitive this year, and while they have played against 2 Power 4 teams, it doesn't really change the fact that they are just not good, and Trent Bray is probably going to get fired after this season is over. Oregon State had a couple of good seasons under Jonathan Smith, but it slowly looks like they're going back to being a doormat. Getting removed from the Power 4 was also heartbreaking for them. Another team that's had a very bad 2025 season so far is the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. They have honestly struggled the last couple of seasons, but the 2025 season has been terrible for them. In week 1, they ended up losing to an FCS school as the Austin Peay Governors not only beat them, but won big. They won 34-14, and Middle Tennessee was already in big trouble. In week 2, they ended up going on the road to play against Wisconsin, and for a Badgers team that can barely do anything, Wisconsin ended up putting 42 points on them. Through the first 2 weeks, Middle Tennessee had a claim at being the worst in college football, but they got their first win this past weekend as they somehow went on the road and beat Nevada 14-13. Maybe it's now a step in the right direction for Middle Tennessee, but so far their season has not been very good. I would have expected them to probably beat Austin Peay and lose to Wisconsin and Nevada, but still, they're 1-2, exactly where everyone expected, and I don't really know what they're going to do the rest of the season. They play some pretty bad teams as they get Kennesaw, Missouri State, Jacksonville State, Florida International, Sam Houston, and New Mexico State, all of which should be in the bottom 20 schools by the end of the season, so who knows. Maybe Middle Tennessee somehow gets hot and beats up on some bad teams and makes a bowl game, but after losing to Austin Peay, I have very little hope for them, and I don't think they're going to have a good year. We now have 5 more schools to go, and I want to talk about the Sam Houston State Bearcats next. After moving up to the FBS, Sam Houston had a good year, but now they are back to struggling. Their head coach ended up leaving for Temple, so that's probably part of the reason, but in week 0, they ended up getting beat by Western Kentucky 41-24, and then they ended up getting beat by UNLV. UNLV has an argument at being the top group of 4 team right now, but still, Sam Houston was not all that competitive in that game. The Bearcats would then drop to 0-3 after they would lose by 3 scores against Hawaii, and so far the team is winless. While they haven't been absolutely horrible, they have not been good either, and they can't seemingly get a win. They do have some games that they could win, as they'll play Florida International, Oregon State, Middle Tennessee, and New Mexico State. I think Sam Houston State probably ends up with 2 or 3 wins when it's all said and done, but it's definitely not a good season, and they're going to have a lot to improve on if they want to get back to being a good Group of 4 program. Up next, we have our last Power 4 team on the list, and that is the UCLA Bruins. They have been absolutely horrible in 2025 so far, as they already fired their head coach Deshaun Foster just less than half a month into the season. It has really been that bad for them, as so far they got blown out by Utah, beat by UNLV, and then blown out by New Mexico. We can dive into those games a little bit more, as in that first game, Nico was pretty much sacked the whole night, and Devon Dampier looked like he was going to win the Heisman. In week 2, they lost to a Group of 5 team in UNLV, and then this past weekend, they just honestly got outplayed by a team that's not very good. New Mexico didn't make a bowl game last year, but still lost their coach, their coordinator, and their top quarterback and receiver, and then they managed to go beat UCLA at home this badly. The Bruins have become absolutely pathetic. Nobody in the administration really cares about football. They don't have great NIL, they don't have a great atmosphere, and I'm not sure what coach is going to want to take that job. The Bruins were once a proud program, and now I honestly don't think they're going to win a game. Maybe they beat Northwestern, or maybe they somehow beat Maryland, but looking at their schedule, I don't think they beat anyone, and there's a real chance that UCLA goes 0-12. It is that bad. For our third to last school, we're going to talk about a program that is typically on the list, and that is the Akron Zips. They are one of the most hopeless programs in all of college football, and nothing has changed in 2025. In week 1, they'd play against Wyoming, and in what was a weird game, they got shut out 10-0 at home against the Cowboys. Honestly, that was actually really ridiculous, and in week 2, they also got shut out. This time, Nebraska put 68 points on them though, so their defense was a million times worse. Through their first 2 games, they had been outscored 78-0, but finally in week 3, the offense woke up as they put up 28 points against UAB, but still managed to lose that game to the Blazers. UAB is absolutely awful too, and currently Akron is 0-3, and I'm not sure when they're going to get their first win. Maybe they'll beat Duquesne this upcoming Saturday, but after that, I don't know if there's a win on the schedule. Maybe UMass, maybe Kent State, I don't know. The bottom of the MAC truly is really terrible. Our second to last school is also in the MAC conference, and that is the Eastern Michigan Eagles. I did a video in the offseason talking about how they're one of the worst programs of all time, as they've never really had many good seasons or many good players, and their current coach Chris Creighton is the best that they've had. In 2025, things have honestly gotten worse for them, as in week 1, they got beat by Texas State 52-27, and that game wasn't very competitive, and then in week 2, they really had a blunder. After getting beat down by Florida, Long Island flew up to Michigan and beat Eastern Michigan for one of their biggest wins in school history, and this is just terrible. I mean, Long Island is not good at football, and Eastern Michigan lost this team at home. Somehow they would play a little bit better this past weekend against Kentucky, as they only lost 48-23, but it's apparent that Eastern Michigan doesn't have a defense, they're not good, and they could be the worst team in the MAC. The worst team in all of college football for 2025 so far is going to be UMass. I mean, UMass has been absolutely terrible for the last couple of decades, but this year's team just looks even worse. In week 1, they'd end up playing against the Temple Owls, who are already one of the worst teams in the country too, and they got blown out 42-10. I mean, Temple is not good at football either, and UMass just didn't even show up. In week 2, they'd have a chance to get maybe their only win of the season, and that would come against Bryant. Instead though, they lost to Bryant 27-26, and this just proves how bad UMass is. Bryant is a low-level FCS school, and I would say I'd rather lose to Long Island than lose to Bryant. In week 3, they played against the Iowa Hawkeyes and lost 47-7. Yeah, I mean, everybody thought Iowa was going to win this game, but Iowa's offense was horrible the first 2 weeks, so the fact that they put up 47 points against UMass just shows how bad they are. I think, in my opinion, UMass is the worst team in all of college football, and if they faced off against Eastern Michigan, I'd probably pick Eastern Michigan to win by 2 touchdowns. They are just absolutely terrible, and I don't know if they win. They still get games against both Akron and Kent State, so maybe they can pull off one, but probably not. They, in my opinion, are the worst team in all of college football, and what do you guys think? Many are probably wondering why Kent State wasn't on the list, and the reason I did not put them down is because they do actually have a win, and they were competitive last week against Buffalo, so they are stuck in that logjam of bad teams that have a win, but they'll probably be here soon. What do you guys think though? Who do you think is the worst team in all of college football? How do some of these teams get better? And what topic should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.